Hello, hello. My name is Suzanne Burton and from a company called Discover Change. And I'm really excited to be here with Tracey O'Brien. Hi, Tracey. How are you? Great to see you. And thank you so much for taking part. And me and Tracey, actually, we have collaborated on a project called Champions of Change with the aim to support local businesses to really develop and grow within their community. Now, I know that Tracey has many, many years of experience in working with and supporting organizations to develop. And she also works on a really exciting project at the moment called Develop Your Way. So Tracey is going to be sharing a couple of really useful tips today, a little bit more about your journey and your experience, and a little bit more about this great project, particularly in working with smaller charities and organizations, community organizations, with the aim to encourage physical activity, health and well-being. So once again, Tracey, thank you so much for taking part. And maybe you could just, because I know that you wear many hats as well, you do a lot of different things. Maybe you could just briefly describe what is it that you exactly do?
What do? I do lots of different things. So I go in and I support organisations on a wide range of matters. So it could be bid writing, it could be, and I have done, it could be restructuring, it could be supporting them to lay the foundations for project management and project delivery. And I'll talk a little bit more about Develop Your Way. That's helping Sport Birmingham, who I'm working with, to develop a programme that's quite like Touch, what helps people to develop and network with other organisations. So I do sometimes say, people say, what do you do? And I go, whatever pays the mortgage. That's what I do. But no, so you know, it's around a range of things.
Well, that's great. And I think especially you have provided a lot of personalized business support and consulting and support. So, and also for charities, which is such a key part of this project that you've obviously been part of and what we've been working on. So in terms of this project called Develop Your Way, could you describe a little bit more about exactly what it's all about and what has been your role in that?
Okay. So Develop Your Way as an idea, just as an idea, started before we had COVID, and it came out of Happy Healthy Holidays, which I also worked on with Birmingham. And what we recognised that there was quite a lot of small community organisations, community interest company organisations, all of which were delivering really good services and really good activities. What we're saying, oh, could I have a little bit of support around this, and I'd like a little bit of support around that. And it wasn't appropriate to give them, you know, dare I say, you know, an MBA in business. You know, that just was not what it was about. You know, do a course for 10 weeks and make sure you tick all the boxes and then off you go. So we just kept talking. We just kept talking about what something could look like. So we put a proposal together to active communities, and we called it Develop Your Way. And we decided some of the key things would be, it would be light touch. So it wouldn't be, you know, you must attend, you know, 10 3-hour courses on, you know, how to manage your finances on an Excel spreadsheet, because yeah, people just weren't going to turn up. So it was also about maybe offering people some mentoring. Now, when I say that, Suzanne, I don't mean coaching. And, you know, it was about almost a bit of business support, a bit about, well, talk to us, tell us, you know, where do you want the help? What support do you need? So we've put a mentoring offer in there as well for a couple of hours. And then the other idea was, let's get people to network, let's get people to talk to each other, and let's get people to come together. And maybe they've not met each other before, maybe, you know. So the idea of this was to get people talking a bit, to give some support around some mentoring, and to touch on some key issues, I think would be the right thing to say, because obviously what happened was COVID then came. So we started to look at this in terms of COVID, and we started to deliver it remotely. So we got a first group of people together, and basically what we did was we put on an hour session, just an hour, and we did different times of the day. So some of the sessions were running in the evening. I did have somebody say to me, could they have their glass of wine while they were doing the session? I said, absolutely. I was stone cold sober, by the way. But so what we did, the beauty of this is we tested it. So we tried different times to see what would suit people. So we did some in the evening, we did some on weekends, we did some during the day. And what we looked at, the first cohort was, how are we going to come out of COVID? How is your organisation going to come out of COVID? And what is it going to look like for you? So we split them into 8 sessions, and I'm not going to go through each session, Suzanne, because but basically what we looked at was how you could look at developing your resilience for your organisation, for you as a person. What did your local community leadership look like? What are some of the key things, that make you a good community leader? I don't mean leadership in that sort of, business kind of leadership kind of sense,
Serious
but I mean,
corporate leadership, yeah.
Being a leader in your community. What are the key things that you need to make the organisation sustainable? How can you grow and maintain some of your income streams? How can you, and we spent quite a bit of time on this, because I think it's very easy for funders to say, well, you all need to work together. I mean, if you all work together, that would be okay. But that's quite difficult, really. They don't turn around to Asda and Sainsbury's and Marks and Spencer's and say, you need to all work together. Will you not sell that, but you can sell that? But they turn around to community-based organisations or smaller companies and say, well, you should all work together. So we looked at what is involved in working with other organisations. What do you need to think about before you, commit to maybe delivering something in partnership with and sometimes with a bigger company. How can you protect yourself? What do you need to be thinking about? So we looked at that, and we looked at growing your networks, and we sort of looked at governance as well. And I think we looked at where you are at the moment, is that the right governance for you? So these were the topics that we looked at, and we looked at some core themes. And I think about your core, because I have to do some bit of core exercises now. So, get your core right. So we looked at, these are the core things that you need to be really thinking about. Sometimes you will spend a lot of time on looking at your finances. Sometimes you'll spend more time on governance. Sometimes you may spend a lot of time on working in partnerships. But there are some key core things that you need to keep an eye on, and you need to keep reviewing and refreshing in order to make sure that the company can be sustainable. So we had a week on each topic, an hour. And basically, we did a presentation. I did a presentation for about half an hour. And then people could come in, people could come interrupt. It wasn't, you could raise points, you could share your experiences. And then basically I'd have a sip of tea, cup of tea. And then what would happen? Yeah, then we started in my cup of tea now. And then we start the networking session. And basically people were starting to share information. And you could see as the weeks went on, trust started to develop. So we had, for example, on the second trench of people that we worked with, we had 2 organisations, didn't know each other existed. One worked with young people, some of whom had got ADH, and some had some different levels of autism. And this other group here had a sensory garden and a sensory centre. So the first thing they did when they met each other on video was they got together. Yeah, so they could work together, because and that was really, really good. The networking bit, the talking just afterwards, people really liked. And the feedback, the feedback was that people just liked a light touch approach. They liked the idea of being able to have a chat.
I think that's really refreshing, because I think, especially with what you said there, businesses have gone through, some had to unfortunately close down or radically change or cut down. So there have been a lot of tough times recently in the last couple of years. And of course, business can be often quite challenging and tough, but especially in the last couple of years, it's been quite challenging. And many people, I think, and businesses feel like they're alone. Maybe no one else is going through the same. So actually to to connect with each other and realize that, wow, actually just with, you know, seeing someone with like-minded, maybe that they could offer solutions to. And that's really great to hear that they've been put together in that way and actually met. I'm quite curious to hear maybe a couple of, you mentioned that, you know, talking about the key issues. What were some of the key issues that organizations were facing? What would you say, especially in the last couple of years? And what you were looking at?
I think just pulling a few out, Suzanne. I think governance was something that people wanted to talk about.
And what do you mean by governance exactly?
Okay,
Because that kind of, many people would understand, but probably can sound a term, kind of a term that maybe not everybody understands.
Yeah, it sounds a bit, yeah. Oh, you're right, you're right. It's your legal structure, basically. So it's how you are. So obviously, if you are a charity, you will have a group of trustees. You know, you'll have a board of trustees who take responsibility, strategic responsibility and overarching responsibility for the running of the charity. But we had quite a lot of KICs as well, community interest companies, and they will have directors as well on their boards. And what was quite interesting was some of the organisations were saying, maybe we now need to look up our legal structure. Have we got the right legal structure now in place as we're coming out of COVID? And I say coming out, I mean, we seem to be, I know we've had Freedom Day, but you know, we still seem to be coming out of this. Do we have the right people around the table? Do we have the right skills from our community interest company directors or from our board of trustees that we need as we begin to move this organisation forward? And I thought that was quite interesting, and that was quite, you know, that was quite a few organisations were absolutely discussing that they wanted to relook at, you know, had they got the right legal structure and had they got the right people around the table, basically. So that was one. I think another thing as well was people wanted to get ready for what funding potentially would become available post-COVID. And I've said to you, Suzanne, if there will be such a thing as post-COVID, what funding would be available. So obviously some of the organisations had received TIF funding through Sport England and through Sport Birmingham. Others will have received furlough funding. Some had received these small business bounce back loans and so on. But actually, there was a recognition that we may not be able to just go back. We haven't pressed a pause button. And then COVID came along and we just released the pause button and we just carry on. So it was about looking at what funding do we think is going to be out there. And I think the other thing as well is, do your services match what people require and need? And it's a difficult question, you know, because if you've been delivering a particular service for 15 years, you know, you suddenly have to turn around and say, given everything that's gone on over the last 18 months, I can't really consider delivering that. I can't deliver that service in the same way that I delivered it before. It needs to look and feel different. And there'll be different groups and people coming forward that will need support. So it was also about getting organisations to take a think about that as well. So, you know, do the services that you were delivering and that you are delivering going to be what you will be delivering as we move out? Does that make sense, Suzanne?
Absolutely. 100%. And I think it's very well said. What you just mentioned is that, you know, something could have worked really well for 10 years plus, but actually through the changes happening in the last few years or last couple of years, not being able to deliver that service or that product in the way that they used to, it has required so much innovation, so much imagination, huge amounts of resilience. And it's great to hear that you've put together a whole range of tools and given a whole range of strategies and having those discussions that are quite hard to have as well, because a lot of these people are strong leaders, very visionary, and actually not knowing where to go. But having those discussions, I bet, has been really refreshing and helped a lot of your organizations and charities and leaders that you've worked with. So 100%. And I think, I would have, a ton more questions to ask you, to be honest, Tracey, but we're running out of time in a minute. So maybe just as the last thing, as you've been supporting many organizations and charities to develop and also change in the last few months, especially, what would you say maybe a couple of tips? Because, for charities or maybe community leaders, community organizations, that, still have those services that are hugely valuable and possibly more important than ever before. We know that digital development has been quite a key, and you've been part of working on a Skills 360 platform as well, which is all about providing that platform for individuals, organizations, volunteers, communities to come together. But with your experience, what would you say someone could do right now, maybe 2-3 different tips, to start creating some positive change that is well needed?
You know what, Suzanne? I don't think there's an easy answer to that, to be honest with you. I think it's really, oh gosh, I think it's easy sometimes. I'm doing some work with a company at the moment, and they've said, they've had consultants in and they've just gone, oh, you just need to do this, you just need to do that, and we'll write this for you and it'll all be okay. And it's not like that. It's actually really difficult. So there is no panacea, there's no easy answer. But what I think you can think about doing is, if you've got trustees, if you've got a board of directors, if you're a community interest company, or however you're legally structured, take a bit of a step back and think, are we in the right place? Have a review of what you're doing, what you did before COVID, what you've done during COVID, and how you feel that you're going to deliver your services as we move out. And if that means having a bit of a refresh, take a refresh, look at your website. As you quite rightly pointed out, Suzanne, have you got a digital delivery? Are you doing some form of digital delivery on top of that one-to-one delivery as well? Because it seems to be people will want to meet people, Suzanne, they will want to get back to meeting people, but there will also be a level of virtual support and virtual delivery as well. So I think it's about take a step back, take a review, have a look at what you're doing, and plan.
Yes.
So what we did on the Develop Your Way, I did a 1-page business plan, so 2 sides, 1 page with different boxes on it. So it got you to look at your finances, look at your stakeholders, look at who your customers are, look at what work you could potentially bid for. And it doesn't have to be, your thinking doesn't have to be like a massive tome, a 90-page business plan with it. It doesn't have to be like that. This is about putting it on 1 sheet on both sides. So keep it simple. Don't overburden yourself, and pick some key tasks that you think are important to the business in the next 3 to 6 months that you have to, get a grip on, basically. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, that's perfect. And I like what you said there as well, is don't overcomplicate it. We both run our own businesses as well. And sometimes you think so far ahead, but actually people who did their 10-year business plan a couple of years ago, well, let's just say that's gone out of the window for sure. So it's all about actually focusing on the now, maybe on the next few months for sure, of course, and having that long vision and long-term vision as well. But I think having that focus, being open to change and adapt, like you help and support organizations to do that. And I would just say for anyone listening is take example of what you've done. You delivered digitally as well. You put that program together, got people to network, and you could sit back and sip coffee. But actually the key thing is that making that happen is facilitating it. It's not always about you presenting everything. It's about actually bringing those people in and asking those questions, putting them into groups, using Zoom or whatever other platform. And so many of these are actually very affordable. And it's great that you've put that together. And thank you so much, Tracey, for that. And it's clearly has been really useful for a lot of organizations, and keep doing the great work that you're doing. So thank you so much again, Tracey. And I'm sure that we'll meet again very, very soon. Thanks again.
Thank you. Thanks ever so much. Take care and bye-bye.
Take care.